The Five Love Languages: The Secret to Love That Lasts by Gary Chapman. Picture yourself crammed into a middle seat on a red-eye flight, somewhere between consciousness and that awkward airplane sleep where your head keeps bobbing forward. The engines are humming their lullaby, and you're just about ready to give up on comfort entirely. Then the guy next to you, complete stranger, leans over and drops a question that hits like turbulence. What happens to the love after you get married? Now, this wasn't small talk. This was a man bleeding out emotionally at 30,000 feet. 3 marriages, he tells you. 3 times he chased that lightning-in-a-bottle feeling we've all seen in romantic comedies. 3 times he thought he'd finally cracked the code. And 3 times, somewhere between the honeymoon and ordinary Tuesday nights, the whole thing just dissolved. He looks at you with genuine confusion and says, "I run a successful business. I'm not an idiot. But I cannot figure this out." Here's the thing, though. His question isn't unique. It's whispered in therapy offices, muttered during late-night fights, and thought silently by millions of people lying awake next to someone who feels like a stranger. Why does that intoxicating, butterflies in your stomach, can't stop thinking about them feeling, seem to come with an expiration date stamped on it? Enter Gary Chapman, a counselor who spent over 30 years as a relationship detective. He sat across from countless couples, notebook in hand, listening to their stories of confusion and heartbreak, and somewhere in all that mess, he noticed something. A pattern, a code, if you will. He realized we've been fundamentally wrong about how love actually works. His discovery became this unassuming little book that somehow sold over 5 million copies in English alone and got translated into practically every language on earth. It's quietly revolutionized marriages, stitched families back together, and given people an entirely new vocabulary for human connection. Today, we're cracking that code together. By the time we're done here, you'll understand something that can transform literally every relationship in your life. Romantic partners, family, friends, maybe even that difficult coworker. You'll learn that love isn't just some mystical force that strikes like lightning. It's actually a skill you can learn, a language you can become fluent in. And once you do, you'll never look at the people in your life quite the same way again. Let's kick things off with a deceptively simple idea. Inside every single person walking around this planet, there's something Dr. Chapman calls an emotional love tank. Think of it exactly like your car's gas tank. When it's full, that car purrs like a kitten and takes you anywhere you want to go. When your emotional love tank is topped off, you're firing on all cylinders. You feel secure, valued, and genuinely connected to the world around you. Everything looks a little brighter. But what happens when that tank hits empty? The car coughs, shudders, and dies on the side of the road. When our love tank runs dry, we feel worthless, isolated, and defensive. We might turn critical, shut down completely, or become quietly resentful. Dr. Chapman noticed that so much of the destructive behavior we see, in kids and adults alike, is really just a desperate, misguided search for love. It's the warning light flashing on an empty tank. He tells this gut-wrenching story about a 13-year-old girl named Ashley. Her parents discovered she'd contracted a sexually transmitted disease, and they were absolutely devastated. Angry, confused, betrayed. Why would she do this? They kept asking. When Dr. Chapman sat down with Ashley, the whole story tumbled out. Her parents divorced when she was 6, and like so many kids do, she convinced herself it was her fault, that her dad left because he didn't love her. When her mom remarried, Ashley felt even more invisible. She said, "I still had no one to love me. I wanted so badly to be loved." So when an older boy at school showed her the tiniest bit of attention and kindness, she grabbed onto it like a life raft. She didn't want sex, she explained. She just wanted someone to notice she existed. Her love tank had been bone dry for 7 years. Here's the kicker. This deep, aching need to feel loved doesn't magically disappear when you hit 18 or get a job, or even when you walk down the aisle. It follows you straight into adulthood and camps out in the center of your most important relationships. So if we all have this love tank, and we all desperately need it filled, why is it so ridiculously hard to keep the tanks full for the people we care about most? This is where Dr. Chapman's big discovery comes in. We're all speaking different languages. Imagine you only speak English, and the person you love most in the world only speaks Mandarin. You could stand there all day long, pouring your heart out in the most eloquent, beautiful English you can muster. Shakespeare-level stuff. You could be completely, utterly sincere. But what would they actually hear? Gibberish, white noise, not a single word would land. Your love, no matter how genuine and deep, would be completely lost in translation. This is exactly what's happening in relationships everywhere. We show love in the way we personally want to receive love. We speak our own love language fluently, then stand there confused and hurt when our partner doesn't seem to understand or appreciate it. We're expressing love, genuinely, but the message is getting scrambled somewhere between transmission and reception. The guy on the airplane was doing precisely this. He told Dr. Chapman that with his third wife, he constantly told her how gorgeous she was, how deeply he loved her, how proud he was to be seen with her. He was speaking love loud and clear, and he meant every word. But she wasn't receiving it. Maybe she was listening for love in his actions, not his words, and felt absolutely nothing. Being sincere isn't enough. We have to learn to speak the specific love language of the person standing in front of us. After years of playing relationship detective, Dr. Chapman concluded there are 5 core emotional love languages. 5 primary channels through which people give and receive love. And once you understand these 5, you're basically holding the master key to filling anyone's love tank. So let's dive into the first one. It's the language that airplane guy was desperately trying to speak. The first love language is words of affirmation. Mark Twain once said, "I can live for 2 months on a good compliment." For someone whose primary language is words of affirmation, this isn't hyperbole, it's documentary evidence. For these folks, words aren't just words. They're the actual currency of love. Verbal compliments, genuine appreciation, encouragement, kind words. These are what make their heart feel full and their world feel right. Dr. Chapman tells this almost comical story about a woman who marched into his office with a problem. "I cannot get my husband to paint our bedroom," she announced. "I've been nagging him for 9 months." She explained her various strategies. Just last Saturday, perfect painting weather, she found him pecking away at his computer instead. She walked in and said, "Dan, I honestly don't understand you. Today would have been absolutely perfect for painting the bedroom, and here you are on your computer. Did he paint the bedroom? Take a wild guess." Dr. Chapman gave her 2 simple instructions. First, never mention painting the bedroom again, ever. He already knows you want it painted. Second, the next time your husband does literally anything positive, give him a verbal compliment. If he takes out the trash, say, "Dan, I really appreciate you handling the garbage." If he pays a bill, touch his shoulder and say, "Dan, thank you for taking care of that. It means a lot to me." The woman looked skeptical. "I don't see how that's going to get my bedroom painted," she said flatly. 3 weeks later, she practically floated back into his office. "It worked," she beamed. She'd discovered that verbal compliments are rocket fuel compared to the dead weight of nagging. Now, this isn't about manipulation. The goal of love isn't getting what you want. It's doing things for someone else's well-being. But here's human nature 101. When we feel genuinely appreciated, we naturally want to reciprocate. This language has a few different dialects. There are words of encouragement. We all have those tender spots of insecurity, where we're terrified to try. Your encouraging words can be the spark that ignites someone's hidden potential. There's the story of Allison, who loved writing but gave up after one rejection letter. Years later, her husband Keith read one of her pieces and said with genuine enthusiasm, "Allison, you're an excellent writer. This should be published. You have a fascinating voice." Those words gave her the courage to try again. Today, she's got a published book and a contract for more. Another dialect is kind words. Love is kind. Shocking, right? But here's the thing. I love you can mean two completely different things depending on whether you say it warmly or sarcastically. Our tone of voice often carries more weight than the actual words coming out of our mouths. And finally, there are humble words, making requests, not demands. A demand suffocates any possibility of love. It's a chokehold. A request, though, gives direction to love while affirming the other person's agency and worth. It says, "You have something meaningful to offer me, but I respect your freedom to give it." For someone whose language is words of affirmation, your words literally construct their reality. A thoughtless, insulting comment can cut them deeper than a knife, but a simple, heartfelt compliment can keep their love tank full for days or even weeks. But what if words, no matter how carefully chosen and sincerely spoken, just don't seem to land? What if your partner says, "You say you love me, but I don't feel it"? This was exactly the problem facing Bill and Betty Jo from Little Rock. Dr. Chapman had advised them to start giving each other words of affirmation. For Bill, it was like magic. He worked hard, and when Betty Jo started verbally appreciating his efforts, he said, "She's actually made me feel like a man again." His love tank started filling up nicely. But when Dr. Chapman checked in with Betty Jo, she said things had only improved slightly. She heard his compliments, sure, but something crucial was still missing. She said, "He's still not spending any actual time with me. What's the use of having all these nice things if you don't ever get to enjoy them together?" And right there, she revealed her primary love language. It wasn't what Bill was saying, it was what he wasn't doing. This brings us to the second love language, quality time. For someone who speaks this language, nothing screams "I love you" louder than your undivided attention. This isn't sitting in the same room while you both scroll mindlessly through your phones. It's not binge-watching Netflix together, where your attention is glued to the screen. It's putting the phone face down, turning off the TV, looking at each other, and actually connecting. When you give someone 20 minutes of your full, undivided attention, you're giving them 20 minutes of your actual life. You can never get that time back. It's gone forever. That makes it one of the most powerful expressions of love possible. Betty Jo's love tank was running on fumes because, from her perspective, Bill's job was consuming all his time and energy. She didn't actually hate his job. She hated feeling like an afterthought in his life. Dr. Chapman realized his mistake and called Bill back in. He explained that Bill needed to start speaking Betty Jo's language. Together, they made a list of things Betty Jo had been asking for over the years. Weekends in the mountains, lunch dates, walks where they just talked. The solution was simple, though not easy. Bill had to carve out time. He did. And years later, they were happier than they'd been since their honeymoon. Bill learned that climbing to the top of his career ladder meant absolutely nothing if he got there alone. Like words of affirmation, quality time has its own dialects. One major one is quality conversation. This is sympathetic dialogue, where you're genuinely focused on hearing and understanding, not just waiting for your turn to talk or formulating your counter-argument. Dr. Chapman tells the story of Patrick, who showed up in his office after his wife had left him. Patrick was absolutely heartbroken, calling himself every name in the book. He explained, "My wife would come home from work and tell me about the problems in her office. I'd listen and then tell her exactly what she should do. I always gave her solid advice. But she never took it. The next day she'd come home with the same exact problems. After a while he'd get frustrated and say, 'I don't want to hear about it if you're not going to listen to my advice.'" Now, sitting there without his wife, he finally understood. He said, "She didn't want advice. She just wanted to know that I understood what she was going through. She wanted sympathy, attention, but I was too busy being Mr. Fix-It." So many of us are exactly like Patrick. We're wired to solve problems. But a relationship isn't a leaky faucet to be fixed. It's a connection to be nurtured. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can possibly do is just shut up and listen. Another dialect of this language is quality activities. This is about doing things together where the point isn't the activity itself. It's the fact that you're doing it side by side. It's building a bank account of shared memories you can draw on for decades. Whether it's planting tomatoes, browsing a used bookstore, or taking an evening walk, the activity is just the vehicle. The real destination is togetherness. So we've covered words and time. But some people need something more tangible, something they can actually hold in their hand. This brings us to the third love language, receiving gifts. Now, it's easy to roll your eyes at this one and think it's shallow or materialistic, but that completely misses the point. For someone whose language is receiving gifts, the gift itself is a visual symbol of love. It's physical proof. The price tag is usually irrelevant. What matters is the thought behind it. A gift says, "I was thinking about you." It's proof that you existed in their mind even when you weren't physically together. Dr. Chapman studied anthropology and notes that gift-giving is part of the love and marriage process in literally every culture on Earth. It seems to be hardwired into human connection. The cost genuinely doesn't matter. A wildflower picked from a field can mean more than an expensive bracelet if it's given with genuine love. Someone who finds a cool-looking rock on a hike and brings it home to their partner has just found a powerful expression of love. The key is the thought, expressed through the action of getting it and giving it. The most powerful illustration of this language comes from Doug and Kate in Chicago. Kate was at her breaking point. After years of marriage to Doug, she felt completely unloved. He was a decent guy, methodical, reliable, emotionally distant. She felt used and unappreciated. She told Dr. Chapman, "I was seriously thinking about leaving him." Then they attended one of Dr. Chapman's seminars. The following Monday, Doug came home from work and handed her a single rose. Kate was absolutely stunned. She asked where it came from. "I bought it from a street vendor," he said simply. "I thought you deserved a rose." She started crying. Tuesday, he brought home pizza so she wouldn't have to cook. Wednesday, he brought a small potted plant, saying he wanted to give her something that would outlast the rose. Thursday, he gave her a card and asked her out for dinner on Saturday. By Saturday night, Kate said, "I was in orbit." This man had never, not once, given her a flower, a card, or brought home dinner in their entire marriage. It was a seismic shift. At dinner, she finally asked what was going on. Doug explained that at the seminar, he'd had an epiphany. Her love language was receiving gifts, and he'd been blind to it for years. So he decided to run an experiment, give her a gift every single day for 1 week, and see what happened. It didn't just make a difference, it performed a miracle. Kate said, "He's like a completely new person. You wouldn't believe how happy we've been. My tank is full and overflowing." Doug learned to speak her language, and it literally saved their marriage. A powerful variation of this language is the gift of self, the gift of your physical presence, especially during a crisis. Dr. Chapman tells the story of John, who felt her husband Don loved softball more than he loved her. Why? Because 10 minutes after their baby was born, he left the hospital to play in a softball game. And on the day her mother died, he went to the funeral but left immediately after to play softball again. Don was a good guy. He was there for the birth. He'd helped her family for an entire week before her mother passed. In his mind, he'd done his duty and deserved a break. But he failed to understand that for John, in those critical, life-altering moments, his presence was the most powerful gift he could possibly give. Her love tank didn't just need a gift, it needed him, physically there, choosing her over everything else. Doug, the guy from Chicago who figured out his wife's gift language, revealed something interesting about himself. When Dr. Chapman asked what made him feel loved, Doug said, "Oh, I've always felt loved by her. She's the best housekeeper in the world. She's an incredible cook. She's wonderful with the kids." Right there, he revealed the fourth love language, acts of service. For some people, actions genuinely do speak louder than words, time, gifts, or anything else. This language is about doing things you know your partner would like you to do. Cooking a meal, washing dishes, taking out the garbage, mowing the lawn, changing diapers. These are all acts of service. They require thought, time, and effort. When they're done with a positive spirit, they're incredibly powerful expressions of love. Dr. Chapman discovered this language in a small North Carolina town when a young couple, Mark and Mary, approached him after church. They'd been married 2 years and felt like they were on different planets about everything. Mark complained that Mary didn't keep the house clean or have dinner ready when he dragged himself home from his exhausting job at the mill. Mary complained that Mark never lifted a finger to help around the house and just wanted to go hunting or fishing. But before marriage, things were completely different. Mary remembered, "It was the way he helped me with absolutely everything. He was so eager to help. He'd help with her chores, her school projects, even wash dishes at her parents' house." That's what made her fall head over heels for him. And why did Mark do all those things? He said, "It's what I would want someone to do for me if she cared about me." Plot twist. They both had the exact same primary love language, acts of service. So why were they miserable? Because they were speaking different dialects of the same language. His idea of a loving spouse was someone who took care of the house, like his mother did. Her idea of a loving spouse was someone who helped her with tasks, like he did when they were dating. Once they made specific lists of acts that would make them feel loved, he wanted the bed made and dinner started. She wanted him to vacuum once a week and change the baby's diaper sometimes. Their marriage began to transform. They learned that love isn't just about serving. It's about serving in the specific ways that are most meaningful to your particular partner. Quick note: this is about love, not being a doormat. Love is a choice, and it has to be freely given. We can make requests of each other, but demands kill the flow of love dead. Criticism is often just someone's really ineffective way of begging for love. When your partner criticizes you, they're often revealing their deepest emotional need, just in the worst possible way. We've covered words, time, gifts, and service. There's one language left. It's perhaps the most primal, direct way humans communicate connection. The fifth love language is physical touch. From the moment we enter this world, we learn about love through touch. Babies who are held, hugged, and kissed develop healthier emotional lives than those who are deprived of physical contact. That fundamental need doesn't evaporate when we become adults. For someone whose primary language is physical touch, physical contact is their emotional lifeline. Holding hands, kissing, hugging, a hand on the back, a touch on the arm. These expressions fill their love tank and make them feel secure and connected to you. Without it, they can feel profoundly unloved, even if you're fluently speaking all four of the other languages. A slap in the face damages anyone, but it's absolutely devastating to someone whose primary language is touch. In the same way, a tender hug communicates love to everyone, but it shouts love to this person. This language isn't just about sex. It's about the small, casual touches throughout the day, putting a hand on their shoulder as you pass by, sitting close on the couch, holding hands in a parking lot. These tiny moments can keep their tank topped off. The story of Pete and Patsy illustrates this perfectly. They'd been married for years, but Patsy felt Pete was emotionally distant and withdrawn. He spent all his time with his job and his computer. She begged him to spend more time with her. Her language was quality time. But Pete's story was different. He revealed in counseling that his primary language was physical touch. When they were dating, she was always responsive to his hugs and kisses. But after marriage, that changed. He felt rejected repeatedly, so he decided to stop initiating touch altogether, just to see how long it would take for her to reach out to him. He said quietly, "Once I waited 6 weeks before she touched me at all. I found it unbearable." His withdrawal into work and computers wasn't about being cold or uninterested. It was his way of protecting himself from the constant pain of feeling rejected and unloved. He was literally starving for her touch. Patsy was floored. "I would go weeks without touching him," she admitted. "It honestly didn't even cross my mind." It wasn't important to her, so she didn't realize it was essential oxygen to him. Once they understood each other's languages, everything shifted. When Patsy started initiating physical touch, Pete's entire personality transformed. And once he felt loved and secure, he was suddenly able to give her the quality time she'd been desperately craving for years. So there you have it, the 5 languages: words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. The obvious next question: how do you figure out your own primary love language? Dr. Chapman suggests 3 questions. First, what does your partner do, or fail to do, that hurts you most deeply? The opposite of what wounds you is probably your love language. If their critical words crush you, your language is likely words of affirmation. If their absence feels like abandonment, it's probably quality time. Second, what have you most often requested from your partner? Those things you're constantly asking for, what your partner might call nagging, are often giant neon signs pointing to your primary language. And third, how do you naturally express love to others? We typically give love in the way we'd most like to receive it. Once you know your language and your partner's, you've got the map. But knowing the map isn't the same as actually taking the journey. This is where the most important lesson of the entire book comes in. You might be thinking, this sounds great, but my partner's love language is acts of service, and I'm just not wired that way. Or, my spouse needs physical touch, but I didn't grow up in a touchy family. It feels awkward and unnatural. This is the question Dr. Chapman gets more than any other, and his answer is beautifully simple. So what? He shares his own story. His wife's primary love language is acts of service. One of the main things he does for her, as an act of love is vacuum the house. He absolutely hates vacuuming. His mother made him do it throughout his entire childhood, and he swore that when he grew up and escaped, he would never touch a vacuum again. And yet, he vacuums their house regularly. Why? Love, he says simply. Here's the crucial insight. When an action doesn't come naturally to you, it's actually a greater expression of love. His wife knows that when he vacuums, it's not because he's enjoying himself or it fits his personality. It's 100% pure, undiluted love, and he gets full credit for it. This brings us to the profound, potentially life-altering core of this entire book. That initial, euphoric, butterflies and fireworks feeling of being in love is not true love. It's an instinct, an emotional obsession that feels absolutely wonderful, but has an average lifespan of about 2 years. It's the emotional equivalent of a rocket launch, exciting, powerful, necessary even, but it's not designed to last forever. It's just supposed to get you into orbit. True, lasting love is not a feeling, it's a choice. It's the choice to wake up in the morning and ask yourself, how can I fill my partner's love tank today? It's the choice to learn a language that feels foreign and awkward, to stretch beyond your comfort zone, to do something that doesn't come naturally, all for the benefit of the person you've chosen to love. Your feelings don't lead you to the action leads you to the feelings. Can you love someone you feel like you hate? This was the raw question a woman named Anne asked Dr. Chapman. Her husband was critical, condemning, and emotionally cruel. Her love tank wasn't just empty, it was cracked at the bottom, yet somehow she didn't want to give up. Dr. Chapman proposed a radical 6-month experiment. She would try, as a pure act of will, to love her husband in his primary love language, which they guessed was physical touch and words of affirmation. She would stop all complaints and criticisms, start initiating intimacy, and give him genuine compliments, even though she felt absolutely nothing. It was incredibly difficult. She felt like a complete hypocrite, but she chose to do it anyway, not as an expression of feelings she didn't have, but as an act of love for his benefit. The first month, her husband was dismissive and suspicious, but she kept going. The second month, he started giving her positive feedback. In the following months, he began responding to her requests and changing his behavior. Her love for him, which she was convinced had died forever, slowly began to return. Her experiment worked. Love didn't erase the painful past, but it made a different future possible. When we look back at the journey we've taken today, from the desperate guy on the airplane to the miracle marriage in Chicago, the central message is one of incredible, almost revolutionary hope. It tells us that love isn't some mystical, unpredictable force beyond our control. It's not something we have to cross our fingers and hope strikes us like lightning. It's a practical, learnable skill. The metaphor of the love tank reframes our entire approach to relationships. It shifts the focus away from, what am I getting out of this, toward what am I giving. It moves us from a mindset of conflict, where we're constantly trying to prove who's right and who's wrong, to a mindset of service, where the only goal is making the other person feel seen, valued, and loved in the way that's most meaningful to them. The most empowering idea in this entire book is the realization that love is ultimately a choice. That initial in-love feeling is wonderful. Enjoy it while it lasts, but it's just the opening chapter. The real story begins when you come down from that emotional high and have to decide, day after day, to love the real, imperfect, sometimes annoying person standing in front of you. This is where genuine love is actually forged. So how can you start applying this right now? Here are 3 simple actions. First, try the tank check. Just once this week, with someone you care about, parent, sibling, friend, partner. Ask them playfully, on a scale of 0 to 10, how's your love tank doing today? Then follow it with the crucial question, what could I do to help fill it up? Listen to their answer without judgment or defensiveness, and then actually do it. Second, become an observer of love. Pay close attention to the people in your life. What do they complain about most often? What do they repeatedly request from you? How do they naturally show affection to others? Once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing the 5 languages everywhere, and you'll begin decoding the emotional needs of the people around you. And third, perform one unnatural act of love. Identify the primary love language of someone important to you. Then choose one small action that speaks that language but feels a bit uncomfortable or unnatural for you. If their language is words of affirmation and you're not naturally expressive, write them a short note. If it's acts of service and you're always busy, take 5 minutes to do a chore for them without being asked. It's precisely in that moment of choosing to act against your natural tendencies that love becomes its most powerful. The greatest relationships aren't the result of luck or magically finding a perfect person who speaks your language fluently from day one. They're built, brick by brick, one intentional act at a time, by people who've chosen to learn the skill of loving well. And the most important part of that skill is learning to speak the language of the person standing in front of you. It's a choice you can make today, and it's a choice that can genuinely change everything. That was a summary of The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. We've definitely hit the major ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The map can show you where to go and what to expect, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking those paths, breathing that air, and feeling the sun on your face. The real magic of this book is in the way its simple truths settle into your heart as you read them for yourself. This summary is your map. If anything we've talked about has sparked something in you, even a tiny flicker of recognition, I encourage you to take the actual journey. Grab a copy of the book, because the experience of reading it can genuinely transform the way you connect with everyone in your life. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.